To do the valve cover on this Honda, all you're going to need is these are all the tools you need, not very much at all. All right, 10 millimeter 1/4 inch and a ratchet. I just happen to grab a long one. Doesn't matter if it's long or short. 10 millimeter wrench, 10 millimeter deep 3/8 socket and a ratchet. I just happen to have this Chemo electric. I've had this thing for a couple years now. Love it, amazing. I'll put a link down in the description below if you guys want one. Pair of pliers. You can pick this up from O'Reilly's, and a screwdriver that I use to scrape the old gasket off the engine block, and as well as to pop off the valve cover. So not much to the tools that you need to do this job.
Bundy's Garage, Bundy here. Today we're working on a Honda Accord 2010. Yeah, I don't think I can do that the whole video. Hey, today we're working on a 2010 Honda Accord with a 2.4 liter inline 4-cylinder engine. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to do the valve cover gaskets on this bad boy. One way you can tell if it's leaking is if you have oil coming up the sides of your valve cover. There's a black cover held on by 4 10 millimeter bolts that you got to get off. Not hard at all to do. I'm using my Chemo 3/8 ratchet here with a long 10 millimeter 3/8 socket. Can't get it with my fingers, so I got to get a magnetic pickup tool to get those two back bolts out towards the firewall. Take off the oil fill cap, pull up the cover. That will expose the 4 coil packs, the 4 ignition coils. You have to get those clips off each one, and then there's one 10 millimeter bolt that holds each ignition coil in place. Okay, right here I was showing you there's some hoses you need to disconnect. One's a vacuum brake hose, and the other one I believe is part of the PCV system, PCV valve system. And then you have on the driver's side there's 2 10 millimeter bolts that I have to take out. It's actually part of a bracket system that connects to the valve cover. Just two 10 millimeter bolts, but they're very short, so don't drop them down there. I actually dropped one. The first one I got out, I dropped it. So right there, that's what I'm getting at. Got a 10 millimeter wrench and just breaking it loose, and then I pull it out the rest of the way with my finger. But yeah, if somebody quoted you a ridiculous amount of money to do this job, just know that this is not hard at all, and I will put links down in the description for the valve cover gasket that I use, as well as the tools that I use. I also put links down there for other videos I've done and products I recommend that are Bundy approved. You can see it's a very short 10 millimeter bolt that comes out. So that is free and clear. Right there, just getting the 4 10 millimeter bolts out. Then I'll pull out the ignition coils. Do not break the little tabs that hold the electrical connector on the ignition coil. So right here I'm taking off the there's 6 like little acorn 10 millimeter nuts. Gotta take 6 of them off. Man, am I getting sick? Pulling out the dipstick. On some Honda Accord applications in the passenger side, you might have to take off the bracket for the power steering line. Then right here on the passenger side as well, I'm just showing you where I put the screwdriver down there. Depending on how long this has been on there, most of the time you're going to have to get down there and pop it free and clear. Don't dig into it. You're just trying to pop it up a little bit and get it free. If it's holding on tight, if it's not moving at all, you left one of the bolts on. So just know that. And try not to mar the surface of the valve cover or the engine block. You do not have to take out the spark plugs to do this job. There, I got it up and out. Or not up, I should say. It's about to come out. Sometimes the old valve cover gasket will come with it. Sometimes it won't. Right there, it stayed behind. So I'm just showing you guys what it looks like. It's one of the taller valve covers that Honda uses. As you can see how black it is in there, it's either somebody didn't change out the PCV valve often enough, or they didn't change out the oil enough. It shouldn't look like that. It shouldn't be that tarnished and brown. Okay, so right here, you have a timing chain cover, then you have the engine block. It's a little seam that you can see, and from factory, from Honda, they actually put a little bit of RTV sealant there. What I use and what I highly recommend is Toyota Seal Pack 103. I'll put a link down in the description below to that stuff, but it is the best stuff that I have found that works the best. You also need to put a little dab, a little pea size, where the that bump or hump over the camshaft on the driver's side, right in the corners, is where you need to put the pea size RTV. So right here, I'm just getting the screwdriver that I use to pop the cover up and off. Just scraping the old RTV, old gasket material right there. And it's a good idea to get some brake cleaner and go around the whole perimeter of where the gasket sits and make sure that's nice and clean. There's no oil or dirt or debris. So right here, I'm getting it off on the back side towards the firewall on the passenger side. So I'm just scraping it with the screwdriver that I used. Like I said earlier, just be careful when you do this. Don't mar the surface of the engine block. Okay, right here, there's the hump for the camshaft. So right there in the corner, right where it starts to raise up, you're going to have a little bit of RTV there. So just make sure that when you put the new one in, put the pea-size RTV in that corner, and then the corner right above it as well, just to the north of that. It'll make more sense when you guys get in there. And doing the back one right there as well. Okay, showing you the Fel-Pro valve cover gasket that I'm using, VS50614R, for those of you who cannot read, by Fel-Pro. Covers the Honda 2.4 and 2.0 engines. Here's the Toyota Seal Pack that I use, 103 FIPG, which stands for Form in Place Gasket. Like I said, I'll put a pea size there, and I'll put links down in the description below. Okay, so I have the valve cover off. It's actually on the bench in my garage. What you have to do is you have to remove, it's actually upside down, so you're seeing the inside of it. What I'm removing there is the spark plug tube seals. These seals actually go around the tube that the spark plug goes down into, and the reason you want to change them out is if they rot or they somehow leak, it can cause oil to fill up your spark plug tube, and then that oil will actually sit there and surround the ignition coil, and when the engine gets hot, it'll actually bake that engine coil, or that ignition coil, and when it bakes the ignition coil, the coil actually expands and gets stuck in there, and you're going to have a misfire, and you might actually get the coil pack stuck down in there. I'll put a link down in the description below where I actually had this happen to me, where an ignition coil actually got stuck in the tube, and I had to heat it up to get it out. It's kind of a pain in the ass, actually. It is a pain in the ass, but this is why you want to do it. I've seen some videos out there on YouTube where the guys just put the new valve cover gasket on and don't even mess with this oil tube seals, which is totally stupid, dude. If you're out there doing this work, if you're not changing the oil tube seals out, you are not doing your customers any kind of good by half-assing the job. Don't half-ass a job. Whole-ass the job. Sometimes these can be very difficult to get out. I've had to use a torch in the past, or actually I had to melt it out. Another good tip is take the new oil tube seals or spark plug tube seals. Take the new spark plug tube seals and stick them in the freezer for 24 hours. It'll actually shrink them down and make it that much more easier to press in. It actually makes it a lot more easier if you freeze them for a little bit and have them shrink down. I got some grease and I actually coated the inside on the valve cover side, and then I coat the spark plug tube seal. Can't say that right. I coat the spark plug tube seal with grease as well, so that it slides in that much more easy. I'll put a link down in the description below to the grease I'm actually using. It's a moly based grease by Valvoline. Great stuff, dude. Super slippery. So I'll grease up all the inside and then the exterior of the new seal as well. But when you actually install it, make sure that you actually grease up the oil tube seal on the engine, or oil or spark plug tube on the engine. Let me start over. When you install everything, make sure you when you install the valve cover, make sure you put grease on the outer part of the spark plug tube. All right, you'll see a defined line of where the spark plug tube seal actually sat. It'll be dark and light, but just coat that up with a little bit of grease so it slides on that much more easily when you're trying to put everything in place. Because the last thing you want to do is have one of these spark plug tube seals roll over when you're trying to install it. So the slipperier you can make it, the better. So I'll actually just start them by hand, make sure that they're going in straight. I don't want them crooked. Then I'll come back with a socket. I believe it was an 1.25 inch socket that I used. I'll show you here in a second. Yeah, I think it's an 1.25 inch, 1/4. I'll double check that. So once again, just putting the grease on the outer ridge or rim of the spark plug tube seal, and just starting it by hand. Then I'll go around with the socket and a hammer and make sure that they are flush with the bottom of the valve cover. Okay, you don't want to sit there and bang it into place and have it bottom out on the bottom of the valve cover. You want it to be sitting nice and flush with the top of the valve. Okay, let me start over. So when you do this, when you start pounding it into place, you want to make sure that you don't bottom this thing out. You'll see quite a big gap in there where the spark plug tube seal sits. Okay, so when you start banging it in, make sure that it sits flush with the bottom of the valve cover. Okay, do not bang the oil tube seal in so far that it actually bottoms out to the top of where the valve cover is. It'll make sense when you get in there. Okay, you just want it to be flush with the bottom of the valve cover. Okay, that's all you want. You don't have to bang it in there and bottom it out. Just make sure that it's flush with the bottom of the valve cover. Okay, it's kind of reversed because I'm just trying to, like, in my mind, I'm seeing it mentally as far as the valve cover is actually upside down. So the top is still the top, the bottom is still the bottom. The bottom is the inside of it. The bottom is the inside of the valve cover. So just make sure you have it flush with the inside of the valve cover. Okay, if that makes sense. And you're going to repeat that 3 more times for all the spark plug tube seals. Just make sure they're not going in crooked. And actually, I used the sock a little bit, but then I just went around with the hammer and just eyeballed it to make sure that it went in there nice and straight like. Just make sure that it's flush with the inside of the valve cover. And just make note of the way you pulled the old valve cover or oil tube seals off. That's the way you want to install them. You can put them in upside down, so it kind of looks like a donut around the inside of the seal. That donut will be protruding out a little bit. Okay, now I'm bringing the Fel-Pro valve cover gasket. There's only one way it goes on, so it's kind of hard to mess it up. What you want to do is you want to start it. I usually start in one corner since it's molded, and then work my way around. You want to push it into place. Like, take a finger and push it down. Don't take your finger and rub it, or not rub it, but don't take your finger and just drag it over the valve cover gasket. You want to make sure that it seats down into the valley that you're putting it in correctly. Right? See? You don't want to drag your finger along it. You want to push it down into place. So once you finish that up, once you do that, what I like to do is I'll flip the valve cover actually over, so it's sitting on the bench, and then I'll push the valve cover down a little bit, just to make sure that the new gasket has seated in place. Okay, now there's 6 covers that actually hold the what do you call it? That actually, so right there, the studs actually go through those holes, and then the nut goes on top of those. I don't even know what you call them. They're basically, what do you call it? They're basically the new rubber shields that go into place. It's rubber and metal, right? And it stops oil from leaking through from where the studs come out and where the bolts connect to. So you got to replace all those. I actually just popped the old ones out, and I totally forgot to get the one on the back side on the top of the screen right now. But basically, you just want to pop the old ones out and have the new ones ready. The valve cover kit comes with new ones. So once you get the new valve cover, or once you get the valve cover back into place, you can put those grommets back in, and then put the nuts back into place. The 6 10mm nuts. Now I'm just taking some 409 and cleaning it up as best as I can. You can see the oil and debris and muck and dirt that has built up over the years. And I just like to clean it up, just so it makes it look that much more nice when the customer gets it back. Actually, it looks like I did something. Well, I know I did something, but sometimes, as a customer, I can only imagine, somebody that can't work on their own vehicles and somebody gets their car back and you're like, did you really do the work? Did you really fix it? What the heck? How do I know you actually did the work that you're supposed to do and you just didn't take my money and, use the parts on your own car? You can actually, in the state of California, you can actually tell the shop that's doing the work on your vehicle that you want your old parts back. And by law, they have to give them to you. That way you know that the old parts came off and the new parts were put on. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure about all the other states, but here in California, you can do that. So right here, I'll just clean it up as best as possible. Spray some 409. Get some brake cleaner. Just clean it up. Get the dirt off and grease and oil. I thought about spray painting it, but it's not my vehicle, so decided not to do that. So I'll clean the front, the back, and the 2 sides. Okay, so we're back at the vehicle. The valve cover is ready for installation. You can see the spark plug tubes right there. And like I said, there's a very defined line of where the spark plug tube seal actually sits. That dark to light, the light at the top, is where it actually sits. So what you want to do is get some grease and put a little bit of grease on those oil tube seals, or the spark plug tube seals. Spark plug tubes, so that the valve cover, just goes in that more easily. You don't want it to bind up and flip over on you when you're trying to install everything back together. Okay, so I'm going to put in the Toyota seal pack. All you gotta do is use a little pea size. And when I'm talking about a green pea. All right, little pea size when you do it. Nothing crazy. You don't want this stuff to get all over. Just want a little bit in the corner, just a pea size, a pebble size. Okay, got the front, got the back. Gonna come over to the driver's side. Show you what I did right there. See, little pea size. Little pea size there. Good to go. And I'll get it over in the corner. And I can't get back there with the tube. Put some on my finger. Place it right back there. And then you go to the back and do that as well. The 4 corners. And now it's time for the valve cover. Make sure your valve cover gasket is in place. Make sure that hasn't fallen off. Got the 4 beads of form in place gasket by Toyota in place. Got everything greased up. Got the oil tubes greased up. Got the oil tube seals greased up. The sticking point for me was on the right hand side, or driver's side, that little plate that was held on by the 2 10mm bolts. I had to move that over. You can see right there, I had to move that over, and everything just went into place. Pushed it down. You'll be able to feel when it snaps into place. It'll go over the spark plug tubes. You can feel that actually drop in. Now you can see the studs there. The studs came up. There's 6 of them. Now put the metal and new rubber grommets in place, and then put the 10 millimeter acorn nuts into place as well. So there, I'm discovering that I left one of the one of the metal rubber grommets in place on the backside. But yeah, you just do that. I'm not going to show you the rest of the video or putting everything back together. Once you've done this and gotten this far, it's very easy to do. I believe, off the top of my head, could be wrong, I believe the torque spec for the nuts for the valve cover is 13 foot-pounds. I believe it is. I'll put a number up right now just to double check. But yeah, just go around, tighten them up, put your coil packs, ignition coils back into place, put your connectors back into place. Make sure that the connectors actually click into place, because if you get everything assembled and you start the vehicle and you have a misfire, go back and check your connectors onto the ignition coils. That's the number one cause for a misfire after doing a valve cover gasket. All right. This job wasn't hard at all. It took me about an hour to do. I'll put links down in the description below to some other videos. I'll put a link down in the description to the one where I had to burn off the oil tube seal, or the spark plug tube seal, and then one where the ignition coil gets stuck in the spark plug tube. All right, so there you go, guys. Not hard at all. Also, I'll put a link, or I'll put a list to all the vehicles of Honda and Acura that this engine is in. Quite a few of them. So not only the Honda Accord, it's also in the Acura TSX, RDX, a lot of other ones. I'll put them all down in the description below. But there you go, guys. Hope this helped you out. If you're new to Bundy's Garage, please consider subscribing. I have a lot of subscribers, but my subscribers don't watch my videos. It's usually new people that are watching them. So if you guys can subscribe, it really helps me and my family out. And hope this has helped you save money by not having to take your vehicle to a dealership and charge you guys an arm and a leg and your firstborn kid to get this job done. So I'm empowering you to have the confidence to do this job yourself. It's not hard. It's really not hard at all. So there you go, guys. Hope this helped you out, and I will talk to you guys later.